rock, a river, a tree. Host to species long since departed, marked the mastodon, the dinosaur, who left dry tokens of their sojourn here on our planet floor. Any broad alarm of their hastening doom is lost in the gloom of dust and ages. But today, the rock cries out to us, clearly, forcefully, come. You may stand upon my back and face your distant destiny, but seek no haven in my shadow. I will give you no more hiding place down here. You, created only a little lower than the angels, have crouched too long in the bruising darkness, have lain too long face down in ignorance, your mouths spilling words armed for slaughter. The rock cries out today, you may stand on me, but do not hide your face.
Across the wall of the world, a river sings a beautiful song. Come, rest, here by my side. Each of you a bordered country, delicate and strangely made proud, yet thrusting perpetually under siege. Your armed struggles for profit have left collars of waste upon my shore, currents of debris upon my breast. Yet, today, I call you to my riverside, if you will study war no more. Come, clad in peace, and I will sing the songs the Creator gave to me when I and the tree and the stone were one. Before cynicism was a bloody sear across your brow, and when you yet knew, you still knew nothing. The river sings and sings on.
There is a true yearning to respond to the singing river and the wise rock. So say the Asian, the Hispanic, the Jew, the African, the Native American, the Sioux, the Catholic, the Muslim, the French, the Greek, the Irish, the rabbi, the priest, the sheik, the gay, the straight, the preacher, the privileged, homeless, the teacher. They all hear the speaking of the tree. Today, the first and last of every tree speaks to humankind. Come to me, here, beside the river. Plant yourself beside me, here, beside the river. Each of you, descendant of some passed-on traveler, has been paid for. You, who gave me my first name, you, Pawnee, Apache, and Seneca, you, Cherokee Nation, who rested with me, then forced on bloody feet, left me to the employment of other seekers, desperate for gain, starving for gold. You, the Turk, the Swede, the German, the Scot, you, the Ashanti, the Yoruba, the Crew, bought, sold, stolen, arriving on a nightmare, praying for a dream. Here, root yourselves beside me. I am the tree planted by the river, which will not be moved.
I the rock.
I the river.
I the tree.
I am yours. Your passages have been paid. Lift up your faces. You have a piercing need for this bright morning dawning for you. History, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived. And, if faced with courage, need not be lived again. Lift up your eyes upon the day breaking for you. Give birth again to the dream. Women, children, men, take it into the palms of your hands. Mold it into the shape of your most private need. Sculpt it into the image of your most public self. Lift up your hearts. Each new hour holds new chances for new beginnings. Do not be wedded forever to fear, yoked eternally to brutish darkness.
The horizon leans forward, offering you space to place new steps of change. Here, on the pulse of this fine day, you may have the courage to look up and out upon me. The rock, the river, the tree, your country. No less to Midas than the mendicant. No less you now than the mastodon then. Here on the pulse of this new day, you may have the grace to look up and out and into your sister's eyes, into your brother's face, your country, and say, simply, very simply, with hope, good morning.
The pockets of our greatcoats full of barley. No kitchens on the run, no strike in camp. We moved quick and sudden in our own country. The priest lay behind ditches with the tramp, a people hardly marching, on the hike. We found new tactics happening each day. We cut through reins and rider with the pike, and stampede cattle into infantry, then retreat through hedges where cavalry must be thrown. Until, on Vinegar Hill, the final conclave, terraced thousands died, shaken scythes at cannon. The hillside blushed, soaked in our broken wave. They buried us without shroud or coffin. And in August, the barley grew up out of our grave.
harder still to bear the shame of foreign chains around us. And so I said, the mountain glen, I'll meet at morning early, and join the bold united men, while soft wind shook the barley. Much happened, much of sorrow. In the 90 years between the failed rising of 1798 and that fateful day, that first meeting of Maud Gonne and William Butler Yeats. More than 1 million died of famine and disease. Millions more forced to flee lest they face the same end. Ironic that throughout, Ireland remained a net exporter of grain and livestock, yet not enough kept at home to save her own from 1 million unmarked burial plots. Some called it genocide. No, not one of decree, but one of neglect. A side effect, if you will, of blind faith in free markets which value profit over life, and a deep belief that government should not intervene in the course of natural events, the combination of which gave rise to generations of grief. Yet few among even the lordly class did not lament the plight of Ireland's poor, though fewer still raised a hand or uttered a word in opposition to the mass evictions, peasants' hovels battered down, millions more made homeless, squatting now, cold and sick on barren ground. This, then, was the plight of the Irish race, the canvas, the backdrop against which in 1889 these two met, Gonne and Yeats, both of English descent, her a firebrand, him a bard, and discussed over tea in the warm parlors of pleasant company, Celtic myth, mysticism, literature, and lore, and the proper method of dealing with Ireland's poor. To paraphrase Maud's dearest Willie, a terrible beauty was born. That woman's days were spent in ignorant goodwill, her nights in argument, until her voice grew shrill. What voice more sweet than hers, when young and beautiful she rode to harriers? This man had kept our school and rode our winged horse. This other, his helper and friend, was coming into his force. He might have won fame in the end, so sensitive his nature seemed, so daring and sweet his thought. This other man I had dreamed, a drunken, vainglorious lout. He had done most bitter wrong to some who are near my heart, yet I number him in the song. He too has resigned his part in the casual comedy. He too has been changed in his turn, transformed utterly. A terrible beauty is born.
My life changed utterly. Forever tossed, a boat adrift on the raging seas of Irish politics. That January day, that fateful day on which I met Miss Maud Gonne. Cold, sharp winds, a warming fire, a cup of tea, a tall, haunting beauty. Me, 24. Her, 23. In an instant, I, a fool in love. As she entered that room, everything I knew or thought I knew vanished. My thoughts, my words, my very soul, an upheaval of heaven, an undoing of roles, a new course for better or worse. I knew not then, and no, not now. 4 times I asked her hand in marriage, a 5th mere formality. And while I knew her answer before she spoke, a beggar before her I did stand, humbled as she rejected my every plea. Eventually, I married Georgia, raised 2 children, but love's passion was ever in vigil at Maud's door. She, fixed of eye, firm of frame, a raging fire, relentless in aim, a lioness rampant against an empire. Me. How great the pain that night we lie entwined. For what gives a cock reason to crow gave me in middle years naive and blind, not a yearning thus fulfilled, but a thing so cherished now, so cold. She said, rightly unto my shame, never again, dearest Will. Never again. Friends we are, and all we shall remain. It is to her I bent my pen, of her, for her. My words did rain down on these stormy seas, verse upon verse all dashed utterly on the crags of youthful dreams. Yet I, now old, would not change a thing. She taught me passion, gave me a reason to be. My days will soon fail those few that remain, and for all it is plain to see that I, her dearest Willie, is remembered as much in her light as in any words I did say.
She was said to be the most beautiful woman in Ireland. Her beauty brought silence to a room of men, and as they sat, stricken dumb, if only for a moment or two, she seized the pause which beauty gave to stride with confidence onto center stage and speak, a thing forbidden to women in those days. And they listened and were swayed. This Ireland's so-called Joan of Arc.
How can I stand for this?
called him that. A man of words, poet, a playwright, a hopeless romantic. He wrote a play, just for me, he said. Kathleen and Houlihan. He asked, no, insisted that I play Kathleen, that I be his Ireland, his image of a risen, ancient clan, a young beauty, though once old and poor, now transformed, a radiant queen, who through beauty alone stirs fire in the veins of this poor, ravaged land. You see, for Willie, even that, even the fight for Ireland's freedom, for dignity, was a romantic adventure, rooted in ancient myth, fed on glories of old, fought with words and lofty images. Poor naive Willie. History teaches those with the will to learn that no nation ever gained its freedom without a fight. I tended to those being evicted. Their homes, hovels, little more than thatched roof coffins, crushed by the constable's battering rams, tumblers, traitors, all, while others, supposed men of decency, laws, and learning, stood by, acquiescing, worse, profiteering, their bellies and bank accounts fattened on the loss of life and livelihood of so many. These, Ireland's countless poor. It is not poetry, a pretty rhyme which drives them to take up arms. These men, women, boys, and girls, no. Their energy arises from the soil itself, from the suffering of their own children, from their own loss and pain. They know there is no recourse but to drive out those who would destroy and displace these, the rightful heirs of this Irish race. And yes, I said women and girls, for our rightful place is not as mere alluring reflections in admiring men's eyes, nor the object of an unrequited soul's sad sighs, but at our men's sides, in battle-line array, seize our freedom, showing the world it is neither them nor us alone who stand, but we ourselves with fist clenched hand. Dearest Willie, in your own way, an ardent flame. Yet I often wondered, was your passion for Ireland a striving heart, or merely an echo of your passion for me? And this alone of all my words and deeds I do regret, that I could not love you as you would have it be.
The jester walked in the garden. The garden had fallen still. He bade his soul rise upward and stand on her windowsill. It rose in a straight blue garment when the owls began to call. It had grown wise-tongued by thinking of a quiet and light footfall. But the young queen would not listen. She arose in her pale nightgown. She drew in the heavy casements and pushed the latches down. He bade his heart go to her when the owls cried out no more. In a red and quivering garment, it sang to her through the door. It had grown sweet-tongued by dreaming of a flutter of flower-like hair. But she took up her fan from the table and waved it off on the air. I have cap and bells, he pondered. I will send them to her and die. And when the morning whitened, he left them where she went by. She laid them upon her bosom, under a cloud of her hair, and her red lips sang them a love song, till stars grew out of the air. She opened her door and her window, and the heart and the soul came through. To her right hand came the red one, to her left hand came the blue. They set up a noise like crickets, a chattering wise and sweet. And her hair was a folded flower, and the quiet of love in her feet.
Why should I blame her? That she filled my days with misery, or that she would of late have taught to ignorant men most violent ways, and hurled the little streets upon the great, had they but courage equal to desire. What could have made her peaceful, with a mind that nobleness made simple as a fire, with beauty like a tightened bow, a kind that is not natural in an age like this, being high and solitary and most stern? Why? What could she have done being what she is? Was there another Troy for her to burn?
I was jailed in 1918 with Kathleen Clark and Constance Markovitz. We were sent to England, to Holloway Prison in London. An awful place. We were accused of being involved in the so-called German plot. Of course, it was later proven there was no such plot. Such were their fears of mere women. Kathleen and Con were such good company. We were put on what they termed the hard nails wing. They said it was clear just for us. It seems they thought us wild beasts, we Irish women. One in a cell with 3 empty cells between, to forestall conspiracy, they said. To make our stay that more unpleasant, we came to believe. Hardness everywhere. Iron slats for a bed, a stony lump of a pillow at the head, blankets which could stand on their own. But we didn't complain. We would not offer the British dog even that bit of bone. Our hunger strike took its toll. I was released, the first to be so. It seems they wanted no more Irish martyrs. A woman's blood, in particular, they could not bear. My lungs are damaged. But such is the cost of dignity. We begged Kathleen to seek release. She could not sleep. Starvation and disease would soon claim her if she persisted. Yet she refused. What courage she had, Polite yet sure, she told our jailers there'd be no appeal unto a British state, ever, even unto death. They set her free against her will, leaving only Con, our dear Constance. Her wit never failed. She wrote upon Kathleen's release that never before had she been so thankful to see the back of a dear friend. She wrote much more. She wrote on her own account, true, but she expressed what was in all our hearts. Our contempt of money and our taking of death and jails as all in a day's work must puzzle the British more than a little. Puzzle, indeed, more than puzzlement was demanded of the times. More and more, I realized Ireland could rely only on force in some form or the other, that it was absurd to say that any Irishman, whatever he did, had committed a crime against an English state. No. No puzzle, indeed.
She traveled twice to America, visiting St. Louis each time. She traveled with the man whom she would eventually marry, Major John McBride, referred to by Willie as a drunken, vainglorious lout. Among their goals? To dry up England's supply of mules purchased from St. Louis stockyards, thereby slowing the advance of the British Army. Ever practical, ever focused, ever firm of aim. This Maud Gonne.
In these, my waning days, I have come to see that my love of Ireland never as strident as she would have it be, through love of her grew. Yes, in love of her all was changed utterly. My words, though still poetic, for her soon spoke of might, grew strong at times still light, but spoke more to wrong and right. Yes, in love of her, in love with her, a terrible beauty was born. For England may keep faith for all that is done and said. We know their dreams enough to know they dreamed and are dead. And what if excess of love bewildered them till they died? I wrote it out in a verse. McDonough and McBride, and Connolly and Pierce, now and in time to be, wherever green is worn, are changed utterly. A terrible beauty is born.
old and gray and full of sleep and nodding by the fire, take down this book and slowly read and dream of the soft look your eyes had once and of their shadows deep. How many loved your moments of glad grace and loved your beauty with love false or true. But one man loved the pilgrim soul in you and loved the sorrows of your changing face. And bending down beside the glowing bars, murmur a little sadly how love fled and paced upon the mountains overhead and hid his face amid a crowd of stars.
I deliberately conquered fear, and as a child I wasn't afraid of much. I saw strange shapes moving in the dim gleam night light. And a veiled woman with dark, sad eyes often bent over me. That dark vision has been with me all these years, whomever she may be. Near Uncle Charles's home, there was a shrubbery. We children avoided it at night, imagining it a most fearful place. After dinner, I would force myself out into it alone. At first, I ran all the time, breathless, when I reached the house. Yet I crossed that hell's gate again and again each night, till I could walk it slowly, without a tremor, without a care. Later, in the war in Dublin, when I was old and the bullets flew, it never occurred to me to take cover. I literally felt no fear. And for that reason, I now believe that nothing ever happened to me. Outside General McCahey's house in Portobello, the Women's Prisoners Defense League had organized a great protest against the murder of prisoners of war, for which Mulcahy was held responsible. Free State soldiers were drawn up inside the railings. Shots were fired overhead. The woman's hat had been pierced by a bullet. They came that close. I heard the order given. The front line of soldiers knelt down, their rifles raised, aimed at the ready. Some of the soldiers, the young ones, were ghostly white, trembling with fear. I stood tall on the parapet of the railing and smiled contempt at the officer in charge. He had curious, rather beautiful, pale gray eyes and a thin brown face. We gazed at each other a full minute, our eyes fixed, a steely stare. The order to fire was never given. Later, I was told I was brave, that I had saved many lives. It is not so. You are not brave when fear is dead. The absence of fear gives a strange, aloof power. No. It is the young who are afraid, yet take risks, who are brave.
had over me, I'm ashamed to admit, muffled my every thought and prayer, stunted my reason and judgment so much so that I, too, soon took up her fervent cause, which drove her to face down soldiers' guns and taste the iron of prison's bars. I begged, I pleaded.
He said, "Oh, Maud, please, you must marry. Give up this tragic struggle. Come, live a life of peace with me."
I promised all, everything, desiring only children and a home, a quiet life with her by my side.
"I will make such a beautiful life for you," he said, "among artists and writers."
I told her I could not be happy without her.
It is not with joy or satisfaction I turned him down. I told him his unhappiness was, in fact, a most treasured gift, one of which his beautiful poetry was born. His greatest happiness arose of this. Poets should never marry.
Are you happy, my dearest one?
He's so misunderstood. Will you never forgive me for not loving you?
I poured my heart into my verse, at times in ecstasy, at times accursed. Every breath of soul bent to this end, yet all for naught. She left me to bend with such sorrow, while the fire in her heart burned bright, while I, left only dreams, cleared the ashes of my own heart each night.
Never give all the heart, for love will hardly seem worth thinking of to passionate women if it seems certain. And they never dream that it fades out from kiss to kiss. For everything that's lovely is but a brief, dreamy, kind delight. Oh, never give the heart outright, for they, for all smooth lips can say, have given their hearts up to the play. And who could play it well enough if deaf and dumb and blind with love? He that made this knows all costs. For he gave all his heart and lost.
There were some I call my days of gloom. Struggle against oppression, though a noble duty, is a burden too, one which weighs heavily on any man's or woman's soul. I had occasion to meet John Tully, the mild-eyed assassin he was called by some, for it was said he slew many a landlord that dare evict the suffering poor from their homes. Never was a bullet better spent than on that vile crew. His heart was sore with regret. Many that he had joined, convinced to join the Land League strikes, who now, dispossessed, sat idle in desperation, watching their children die. He asked me to take the helm, their fortunes with God's good grace to reverse, yet I could not. All my strength was pledged to gain, if not release, then humane treatment of those in Portland prison accused of high crimes against this British state. High crimes. Treason, felony, what a mockery. I politely, sadly, declined his request. The weight of my refusal bore him down, a hardened man visibly before my eyes. Perhaps I do have a gift, the courage to speak, but I am no leader. It takes every ounce of me, every grain of energy to accomplish an end. I am not made of the same metals as these, our heroes who have died. Willie's words still ache in my heart.
Oh, words are lightly spoken, said Pierce to Connolly. Many a breath of politic words has withered our rose tree, or maybe but a wind that blows across the bitter sea. It needs to be but watered, James Connolly replied, to make the green come out again and spread on every side, and shake the blossom from the bud to be the garden's pride. But where can we draw water, said Pierce to Connolly, when all the wells are parched away, oh, plain as plain can be. There's nothing but our own red blood can make a right rose tree.
Perhaps, in his own way, Willie was right. I used words where others used might. Their blood spilt red in the awful fight. Many now dead. Yet I don't ill-judge the weight of my work. I stopped many an eviction, fed the hungry, found shelter for the homeless, tended the poor. I forged ties for us in other lands and reaped a bountiful harvest. And many a door I broke down, giving generations of women a freedom not yet tasted before. But no blood of mine was ever spilt. I know the words the future will use. Their fame immortalized in dear Willie's poetry.
But I, being young and foolish, with her I did not agree. In a field down by the river, my love and I did stand, and on my leaning shoulder she placed her snow white hand. She bid me take life easy, as the grass grew on the weirs. But I was young and foolish, and now I am full of tears.
Oh, but we talked at large before the 16 men were shot. But who can talk of give and take, what should be and what not, while those dead men are loitering there to stir the boiling pot? You say that we should still the land till Germany is overcome. But who is there to argue that? Now Pierce is deaf and dumb. And is there logic there to outweigh McDonough's bony thumb? How could you dream they'd listen, that have been here alone? For those new comrades they found, Lord Edward and Wolfe Tone, or meddle with our give and take, that converse bone to bone.
But in the telling of my own days, yes. In that telling, what will they say? What vanity. There is one end that matters such. Ireland's freedom, by whatever means, that is all. That is enough.
In the telling of your days, oh dear Maud, I poured my words unto your praise. All will know of your grace is true. I have seen to that. And though I have made complaint of you never without respect, for all that you have said and done, though me, you did so oft reject. And yet in vain I would have borne you away to London or some other fine place, for all would admire your starlit gaze. If you could just yield the fight, relinquish the chase.
You know that thing I could not do. I had looked into the eyes of the hungry and poor. I saw such dignity, such suffering. They did not complain. They spoke not words, but heart to heart, humankind to humankind. You were always so busy with your words and thoughts. Many words to me, 'tis true, but so much more deserved your art than a mere woman of privilege should. An empire shackled us, deprived us of air. If you had but looked on these, the cold and bare, in their plight you would have known what drove me out, forsaking much, so that I might embrace their cares.
Do you condemn me for my rhyme?
We are each creatures of our time.
Do you accuse me then of a cold heart?
No, dearest Willie, we each played our part.
What shortcoming in me, then, have you always found?
To a holier cause, I'm called to a higher ground.
A cause which brings me torment and pain.
Yet verse you wrote in the face of shame.
Should I have brandished a sword instead?
In your hand, it would have inspired such dread. And yes, your words were sweet and grand, but food and shelter were our sorest need. That and freedom from English tyranny. If your words could have reached those who rule, though deaf, dumb, and blind, they may have cooled. Far different fate then could be than one of cannon and shot.
Please, say no more of this to me. But answer me this, my dearest Maud. You speak of evictions, of tenants' rights. Yet did you not yourself, in landlord's guise, press those claims to me that night?
You dare compare me to that accursed crew? And yes, it was my house in which you did let, but never once did I threaten to evict you, or cause you harm, or seek to impose.
Or so you say, my dearest Maud. But you knew at the moment you knocked on your tenant's door that Georgie, with child, was within in distress sore. Yet there, her rival, my heart, my soul, stood without seeking access.
To my own home, yes. Stranded on a cold, damp night, my lungs of fire, barely able to draw breath. You accuse me of which I most detest. Be not sad, dearest Willie.
You tortured me. You drove me mad.
Loss of dignity, unending shame. Would this have been a better end?
I would have labored to ease your pain.
By removing me from what gives life heart.
Come with me.
We soon must part.
then pray. Please let me die right here, and not look upon another dawn.
Your fate, dear Willie, is in God's hands. May He grant you grace. Yet I will gently close your eyes, and like Kathleen, forever strive to inspire the bravery of this race.
Please, dear Maud, speak no more of this to me. Had I the heavens embroidered cloths, and wrote with golden and silver light the blue and the dim and the dark cloths of night and light and the half-light, I would spread the cloths under your feet. But I, being poor, of only my dreams, I have spread my dreams under your feet. Tread softly, because you tread on my dreams.
These stones on which the feet of Kathleen have rested disappear into the dark loneliness of night. It matters not. She finds other stones on which to step as she crosses the shaking bog. The sunrise will crown her glory, for fire is the heart of each of them. I am blessed to have been, for a brief moment in time, one of these precious stones.
Would it be in vain to ask of you again?
There are more noble pursuits for you than I. But know, dearest Willie, you will ever be a cherished friend, an inspiration to me.
Kind words, yet sad.
Kind, yet true.
Please, dear Maud, no more.
I put to you these words, my lass, your true judgment here to pass on this greatest trial of soul which infects me sore as I roll. Man, in a cleft that's christened alt, under broken stone I haul,
At the bottom of a pit that broad noon has never lit, and shot a secret to the stone. All that I have said and done, now that I am old and ill, turns into a question till I lie awake night after night and never get the answers right. Did that play of mine send out certain men the English shot? Did words of mine put too great strain on that woman's reeling brain? Could my spoken words have checked that whereby a house they wrecked? And all seems evil until I, sleepless, would lie down and die. Echo, lie down and die.
There's more. There was always more. Man, I asked some of the IRA, men and women all had had their say. I asked some of Sinn Féin's ranks and of others less forceful, but who no less drank freedom's heady draught. Was it Willie's words which drove you out, and early grave your price to pay? Or did they give naught but voice, deeds of heart freely done on those your dying day? And here's what I heard them say. Rest easy, dear Willie. Rest easy. I'll not need this, my dearest Willie. Take it with you. Ere I love, my Hoshla. I am off. For all is not said and done. Will you never forgive me for not loving you?
Stones on which the feet of Kathleen have rested disappear into the dark loneliness of night. It matters not. She finds other stones on which to step as she crosses the shaking bog. The sunrise will crown her glory and will warm each of them, for fire is the heart of stone. I am blessed to have been, for this brief moment in time, one of those precious stones.